Hello guys, and Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation, is on fire again. In particular, a military facility that was involved in the production of unmanned aerial vehicles, or simply speaking drones, is burning as I record this video. These may be Ukrainian drones or even sabotage groups working deep inside the Russian RIA. Both versions are totally okay with me, but what we have to highlight is this tremendous change in the course of the Russian war, when now dozens of their regions, including the capital of the Russian Federation, a place located just a couple of kilometers away from the Kremlin, is an active war zone. I'm sure even those of you who loved Ukraine, supported Ukraine, couldn't have imagined something similar would be possible in 2022. But that is the new normal of the Russian Federation, same as constantly exploding and detonating oil refineries. You may be tired of our Russian geography lessons, but again, one was demilitarized in Nizhny Novgorod. And this clearly demonstrates the strategy to demilitarize Russia and thus make this world a safer place when Russia keeps targeting Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. Today, Lviv experienced one of the biggest attacks that resulted in many destructions and lots of good people that lost their lives. But this is not the strategy of victory that Kremlin practices. They simply demonstrate and remind the world and every Ukrainian why we need to defeat them and defeat them faster. And Moscow is on fire again. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see Putin in The Hague and justice served to all the Russian war criminals, subscribe. I'm sure we will discuss that on the channel sometime really soon. And please share these videos to spread the truth. During these 4 years, almost 4 years of the full-scale war, more than 10 years of war with Russia, Ukraine grew stronger. They keep targeting our cities with drones and missiles. This night was also very loud in the west of Ukraine, in many other cities. But their strategy is the strategy of fear and terror, and it doesn't work with brave people who know the truth about the Russian Federation, just the country. It makes us more determined to demilitarize the Russian Federation. And today, Moscow is on fire. Well, just a year or two ago, Ukraine was simply suffering from the strikes, and now we answer, and we answer in a very, very effective way. First of all, 40% of oil refineries destroyed, and I'll speak about that in the second part of the video, but now let's focus on what's happening in the capital of the Russian Federation. A huge fire is now burning in a special economic zone. They have something like that where lots of IT and tech companies are working in Moscow. And nobody knows what's the reason for fire. Russian media keeps reporting it's nothing special, but smoke is all over the Russian capital. And I'm sure people understand that it's another failure of the Putin's regime, and Moscow is a no-fly zone again. Together with this fire, the destruction of an important military facility was reported, and in particular the one working on the unmanned aerial vehicles. That's the way people name drones. There are different kinds of them, but all of them are evil, especially when used by the Kremlin. So these explosions, destructions of military objects, facilities, arsenals in the Russian capital, in St. Petersburg, or 1,000 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border like Perm, Orenburg, Bashkortostan, is the new reality of the Russian Federation that was totally safe before Putin decided he wants to defend Russia by attacking innocent, independent and brave countries like Ukraine, like Georgia, or he has others on the list. And many people report they feel this hybrid Russian warfare against their countries. United we stand, and believe me, Ukraine is determined to defeat this evil and thus protect Europe and the world. But still, please remember, this is a tremendous change in the course of this war. If at the beginning of the full-scale invasion we were mainly suffering, protecting and trying to liberate Ukrainian areas, now we defeat Russia on the Russian side, with dozens and dozens of their regions as an active war zone, including the capital. If drones were flying in any EU capital, in any American capital, I'm sure it would be all over the news. It would be a very negative sensation. And in Russia, they pretend nothing happened, same as they pretend everything is okay when, like, every second gas station experiences shortages of fuel. Subscribe to witness the collapse of the Russian Federation that has already started, and share these videos to spread the truth. Subscribe for notifications. All of that is very important. And I'm speaking directly from Ukraine, from capital Kyiv, the brave city that knows the truth and fights for the truth. Another oil refinery was targeted in Nizhny Novgorod region, and in particular in Kstovo. This is another big oil refinery in the European part of the Russian Federation, and it's like a total war zone. With each month, more and more of the evil sites are in danger, and that oil refinery was capable of processing 6% of this daily Russian oil refining capacity. Take into account that they already lost 38 to 40%. This is huge, and gasoline crisis is real. Together with Moscow and dozens of regions as a no-fly zone, totally uncontrolled borders, and an empty budget. That's why lots of Russian military vloggers, lots of Russian experts, and even invaders like Girkin, who was Putin's author of the annexation of Crimea, who is now imprisoned, keeps reporting about the very dissatisfactory level of the special military operation, and that now it exposed the weakness of the Kremlin, the weakness of the Russian army. If you want to know more, I have dived very deep into the analysis of Russian military vloggers. Do watch my new record-breaking video on Anna Danilchuk channel that already has more than 125,000 views. Pretty unbelievable for a small community there, so be careful to check it, and please subscribe. Moscow attacked Ukraine today. It was a very big attack. Those of you who watched my live yesterday knew that we received reports about Russian tools in there. They targeted Lviv, they targeted Ivano-Frankivsk, many other cities, Poltava. And perhaps it was the largest attack on Lviv, where we now have the book forum. Lots of people, lots of Ukrainian authors came. So another demonstration of Russian attitude to Ukraine as a nation, Ukrainian culture, language. And they destroyed a lot of apartment buildings, killing families. Mother, daughter, grandparents. It's sad. It's tragic. It's awful, but it's not a winning strategy. Russia is failing, and that anger, that dissatisfaction is what leads, to the attacks on the Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. But at the same time, we all understand it's not the strategy. It's something that persuades Ukraine that we need to defeat the evil, and the sooner the better. It's something that inspires our allies to support us, because it's already reported in the global media, in Reuters or BBC, if I'm not mistaken, that before the attack on Lviv region, Chinese satellites were, like balloons or something like that, were noticed in the skies. And it's very likely that China provides Russia with the intelligence. We know that they back them up economically, that they provide parts for weapons, and they are all in this war, because let's be realistic, no North Korean soldiers would be on the ground in Europe without the permission from Beijing. But this is another proof why we need to remain united. And I mean all freedom-loving world, people in Americas, people in the European Union, in Africa, in Australia, in Asia, who don't want the authoritarian regimes to rule on this planet, who don't want to return back to Stone Ages or Middle Ages, where the mighty just have a right. And Ukrainian creativity, Ukrainian bravery, determination, and most of all, the understanding both of Russian attitudes and their weak points is something that will bring us victory, because I believe good will prevail. And we have the skills. Once again, as I record this video, Moscow is burning. Oil refineries are burning. Lots of Russian drivers stand in tremendous queues to get some gasoline, and they already introduced radio in a country that was a gas station. They totally destroyed Russia with this war. And it will collapse, because that is an unnatural for the 21st century imperial project. Follow me on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, and the new channel. You will find the links in the description of this video, same as the link to our merch shop with lots of good items that turn you into the ambassadors of Ukraine and free world, reminding people about the need to defeat the Kremlin. I'm always grateful when you share your stories of how these t-shirts, sweatshirts help you start the conversations. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for being friends of mine, friends of Ukraine, and united we stand. Slava Ukraini!